Just like superheroes, supervillains have a very long history in the history of comic books. There are villains in comics today that are still quite popular that hail from the Golden Age. I mean, look at the Joker, the Silver Age, Dr. Doom. There's a lot of them. But what about some of the newer ones that have been coming out and tickling our fancy? Well, today we're coming at you with the top 10 new supervillains, part 2. Now, we did the part 1 of this list about 2 years ago, 2018 people, so it's been a while since we looked at some of the newer baddies on the block. Now, we won't be going chronologically here, but rather listing these characters based off the impact that they've had. And of course, these are all characters who debuted after 2010. You guys got a little salty with some of the ones on our last list, and hey, fair enough, I hear you. We're doing it differently this time, for you. Because we care. In at number 10, Red Tool. Red Tool is DC's parody of Deadpool, who was Marvel's parody of Deathstroke. So you know this dude is kind of a fun one. Aptly named Wayne Wilkins, Red Tool first appeared in 2014's Harley Quinn Volume 2 Issue 3. He is a vigilante who finds himself falling in love with Harley and becomes obsessed with her. He stalks her. She's not into him. But despite the unwanted attention, the two have become allies. Anyway, he is a villain who doesn't really have an overly extensive backstory, aside from the fact that he suffered a fatal event and survived, but was left with severe nerve damage. He had a surgery that removed a brain tumor, but in the process parts of his amygdala were removed too. Oh, and he also has a bionic arm. So, minor Winter Soldier vibes. Moving on to number 9, GORR the God Butcher. GORR may have debuted in 2013, but he has become one of the most memorable foes of Thor's in recent years. First appearing in Thor God of Thunder issue 2, he is an alien who's thousands of years old. Born on a planet with no name that was on the brink of starvation, he was raised to trust in the gods and to pray, but quickly became aware that the gods were not listening. When his parents died while he was young, he was left to fend for himself in the exceedingly harsh environment. Tragedy ensued further. When he started a family, his wife and 2 sons perished, causing him to lose all hope and faith in the gods, outwardly defying them. He believed them to be myth until he witnessed 2 gods, one of which was Null, fighting. During the conflict, he was bonded with Null's amorphous mass of living darkness, which gave him the all-black, the Necrosword. GORR then killed the other god with it and decided to set out on a quest of vengeance to slay all other gods for not answering his prayers. Eventually, his path crossed with Thor's, and years of revenge had colored his character into something very different. Now, we won't spoil what happened in the story since it is very much a fantastic arc that you guys should read, so definitely check it out. Moving on to number 8, we have Oblivion. Created in 2014, Oblivion is not to be mistaken with prior DC characters who also boasted that name. And yes, this is a DC character who does have some serious Venom vibes. This one is a product of Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, who unknowingly formed Oblivion after breaking through the source wall and editing the source. Oblivion is made up of Kyle's anxiety, rage, greed, and of course, fear, all manifested in physical form. So much so that Oblivion actually believed that he was Rayner himself for a while, hid out at his apartment, and then tricked Carol Ferris into thinking that he was the real Kyle. After he and Kyle clashed, Rayner ended up reabsorbing him into his own body in order to get rid of him. Moving on to number 7, we have the Eradicator 2. A product of DC's rebirth, Eradicator 2 first appeared in 2016's Superman Volume 4 Issue 2. He is essentially a reboot of the original character who hails from the 80s. He is an ancient cybernetic being whose goal is punctuated by his name. His mission is to eradicate anything that would interfere with an idealized version of Kryptonian culture. So he's like kind of a Kryptonian Nazi. And he also looks like Superman minus the eye visor sunglasses thing. According to Rebirth lore, he is part of a group of robots that were created by General Zod, a task force that sought out Kryptonian lawbreakers and would arrest them. He attempts to eliminate Superman's son John Kent by absorbing him, therefore removing, I quote, the human taint. Yikes. Up next at 6, The Dark Knights. In 2017, DC released its Dark Knights Metal event, which saw Batman discovering a dark multiverse that existed beneath the core of the regular DC multiverse. The two are connected through mysterious metals that the Caped Crusader has encountered over the years. As he investigates it further, he accidentally lets in a major threat: 7 evil versions of himself, who, for the purpose of this number, we are calling the Dark Knights. These 7 evil alternates of Bruce are being led by an even more sinister force, a dark god called Barbatos, who wants to unleash darkness across every single Earth in the regular multiverse. But let's talk about the alternates here. There's the Red Death, an amalgamation of Batman and the Flash with a penchant for murder. Speaking of homicide, there's also Murder Machine, who is the cyborg version of Batman from Earth -4. There's Dawnbreaker, a Green Lantern Bruce Wayne, and there's the Drowned, a female version of Bruce named Bryce, who defeated Atlantis and then modified modified her own body to survive underwater in order to drown the entire world to feel the same loss and pain that she's experienced. Then there's the Merciless, who is a Batman who dons Ares' helmet, and the Devastator, who's essentially a Batman Doomsday. The last one we're not going to talk about because he's actually coming up later on our list, so hang tight, friends. Up next at number 5, the Four Furies of Apocalypse. The Four Furies, who hail from Earth 2, are an apocalyptic take on the female Furies. The group consists of 4 female beings: Pestilence, who can create plagues strong enough to kill parademons within seconds; Famine, who can drain the life force out of everyone and everything within her direct vicinity; War, who is telepathic and possesses wickedly fast speeds and immense strength; and Death, who is the most powerful of the Furies, and possesses such a vast necromancy that she can kill and then reanimate her victims by merely walking past them. And at number 4, GRAIL. Another DC character here, GRAIL first debuted in the 2015 Justice League Volume 2, Issue 40. She's the daughter of Darkseid, whose new god/Amazonian physiology gives her powers like super strength, speed, durability, stamina, immortality, enhanced senses, omega beams, will corruption, magic, dimensional travel, resurrection, and summoning. And yes, we said Amazonian. Her mother was an Amazonian assassin named Marina, and GRAIL was born at the exact same time as Wonder Woman was. She was prophesied to cause great destruction in the name of the anti-god, Mobius. And at number 3, we have GODSPEED. GODSPEED debuted in the Flash Rebirth issue 1 from 2016, and then fully appeared in Flash issue 3 a month later. GODSPEED is August Hart, one of Barry Allen's best friends and also a detective. After his brother was murdered and the killer was exonerated, he becomes fueled by vengeance, and is then struck by lightning from the Speed Force, which gives him his speed-based powers. He becomes a vigilante who kills criminals as opposed to arresting them, which makes him an antagonist for the Flash, setting the stage for him to become both a supervillain and an antihero as time progressed. And at number 2, Star. Star is the most recent villain to debut on our list, first appearing in fall of 2019. And to be frank, we're not entirely sure if she is a villain, or will remain one in the near future, because she's kind of a villain now, but there's a lot of complex psychological stuff going on there. And she's done some pretty villainous stuff. Also, friends, heads up, spoiler alert for the recent Volume 10 of Captain Marvel's solo series. We won't be diving into Star's solo series since it's brand spanking new, and that would be kinda cruel. Star, aka Ripley Ryan, was initially a reporter who worked for Tony Stark. After an incident with Nuclear Man in which Captain Marvel saved her, Ryan was absolutely traumatized and ended up volunteering for an experiment of Minerva's. It was to genetically engineer humans into human-Kree hybrids with the promise of it potentially giving people who volunteered superpowers. Ripley was the only survivor of the experiment. Minerva actually tricked her into thinking that she had gotten powers through it by creating a device that siphoned the power of Captain Marvel. Star ended up becoming a foe of Captain Marvel's after the two fought side by side, until she found out that Minerva wanted to recruit Carol. She lost it, tried to kill the Kree scientist, and then went on a bit of a rampage, trying to siphon off the energy of the people of New York City. And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, the Batman Who Laughs. The leader of the evil alternate Bruce Wayne's and perhaps one of the scariest villains to grace DC's panels in more recent years is the Batman Who Laughs. He's essentially an amalgamation of Bruce Wayne and the Joker. He's an alternate Bruce who had killed the Joker, who had gone just a little too far. The Joker's body upon dying released a gas that drove Bruce insane and transformed him into a Jokerized version of himself. He ends up killing all of his Justice League peers, the rest of the Bat family, and then forces all of his Robins to be rabid dogs of sorts, attached to chain leashes. It's pretty disturbing. He's also the only character from the Dark Knight's Metal event who has succeeded the arc, having been so popular as to get his own series briefly, and cause more trouble for Batman on Prime Earth and Gotham. He is arguably one of the Dark Knight's greatest and most disturbing foes to date. Alright, there we have it, friends. What other more recent villains can you think of? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know how you feel about them. If you guys dug this video, you know what to do. Spread that love, hit that like button, and be sure to share it with a friend, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'd love it if you stuck around some more. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.